Leah. How you going? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share with you my top 5 tips on how to improve digestive health naturally at home. So let's dive right into this really important topic. So the first tip I have for you is start to remove inflammatory foods from your diet. And I can speak from experience here. I know how inflammatory foods affect me, and when I don't consume them, I feel much better. There are, however, some people out there who, when they actually remove the inflammatory foods from their diet, they are not inflaming their system. They're not living with the bloatiness. They're not living with the discomfort. They actually start to feel normal again, which is so important. So when I talk about inflammatory foods, there's two main ones that come to mind, and that is gluten and dairy. So gluten found in your wheat products, so many processed foods, even supplements contain gluten, so make sure you read your packagings around that. Dairy again is found in a lot of processed foods, make sure you read your labels. However, dairy is highly inflammatory, highly processed food these days, and so can cause a lot of inflammation in the body. Even a breastfeeding mum and her baby has some tummy issues can be getting an intolerance or some inflammation from the dairy coming through her breast milk. So if that's you, there's a little tip for you. Gluten and dairy are high inflammatory foods. When we start to remove them from our diet, often we find an improvement in our digestive health. So that's the first tip, remove inflammatory foods. The second tip I have for you is start to remove additives from your diet. Now I have had a personal experience with this where MSG would cause a lot of discomfort, a lot of bloating in my body, and it took me a long time to identify it. But now we live an absolutely clean, additive-free diet, and we find that you don't have those same symptoms, your body's so much happier, it's not inflaming, okay? So your gut health is much better if we support it by eating a diet that does not contain additives, alright? I do have a free download around this if you do get stuck going to the supermarket, turning over the packaging, reading the labels and have no idea what you're reading. You can download my free guide. It's exactly the same as what I used when I started on my journey. And now, obviously, I've used it so frequently, I don't need to go back to it all the time, but that's how I learn. I learn from those basic building blocks of understanding what ingredients are, what numbers mean. And so for MSG, for instance, is 621, but it's got a long name, a scientific name. It's hidden under yeast extract, malt extract, natural flavors. There's so many ways that they can sneak these little additives into our food. So that is the second tip. Make sure you read your labels and remove all preservatives, all additives, all numbers, all colours, all flavours, artificial sweeteners gone. That will really help. The third tip, I have for you is when we support our body. Yes, we've eaten something that's inflamed our body, but how are we then supporting our body? Are we feeding our body more chemicals? Or are we actually turning to something natural to support us in that moment? For instance, peppermint. I really enjoy the peppermint oil form. I get a really good quality brand, and I know that I'm using pure peppermint oil. A peppermint tea or peppermint rubbed on the belly. There's so many different ways you can enjoy peppermint, and it has amazing digestive support. Fennel's amazing as well. You can be consuming that, put it in your salads. I personally love using the oil. I put it in drop in some licorice tea. There's so many ways you can expose yourself to beautiful, natural, plant-based supportive digestive products. Ginger is another one. Ginger is incredible for nausea. Ginger oil is amazing in its concentrated form. If you get a top quality ginger oil, it can really support ill feelings and your digestive health. It's amazing, isn't it? So there's so many different things you can be using to support your digestive system, and I guess my tip here for you today is consider trying natural options first before we start adding more chemical exposure, compounding effect of chemicals to our body, because that causes even more inflammation. Okay, so the third tip is make sure you're using natural options to support any discomfort you are having. The fourth tip is eat organic food. So much of our food is laden with herbicides and pesticides. You may have heard of the famous glyphosate, and it is now proven and known to be very toxic to the body. In fact, it causes much havoc with the digestive system, and by eating organic, you are stepping away from your exposure to glyphosate and toxic, harmful chemicals, and so therefore looking after your system rather than damaging it. So the fourth tip is to eat organic. And the last and final fifth tip is to make sure you're removing processed sugar from your diet. White sugar out. Anything, soft drinks, commercial products that have the first ingredient as sugar. You need to be reading your labels. And you need to be removing processed sugar from your diet. It's highly inflammatory, really bad for the gut health. And so reducing processed sugar in your diet is going to be so beneficial for you and your children. Where do we find a lot of sugar? Confectionery. We find a lot of sugar in bread. We find a lot of sugar in processed foods, takeaway. Sugar is hidden in so many different places, and we have to read our labels. Alcohol is a culprit too, because they don't have to disclose the amount of sugar. So beer, wine, those types of drinks have a lot of sugar, and we really don't know what we're actually consuming. So the last tip, the fifth tip, is to make sure you are not consuming processed sugar. And that also includes removing sugar in beverages as well, soft drink and cordial, all those types of things as well. Replace it with water. Kombucha that is low in sugar, make sure you read the labels on that one, because you can be caught out also. But just make wiser choices if you need to have a sugar-filled drink. So, just to recap on all of those 5 tips, the first one is ditch the inflammatory foods like gluten and dairy. Tip number 2 is remove the additives from your food, so the preservatives, colours, flavours, things like MSG. Remove all of that, start reading your labels. The third tip is to make sure you're supporting your body naturally. Think about peppermint, ginger and fennel as a beautiful health support. And then you've got the fourth tip, which is eat organic food, move away from herbicides and pesticides, move away to cleaner options for your produce. And then of course number 5 is to stop consuming foods with processed sugar. Processed sugar is highly inflammatory for the body and very disruptive to the digestive health. So hopefully those tips have helped you today in any small way. They are relevant to both you and your children. So everyone, the whole family can benefit from making small changes in this area. So any questions, pop them below, and if you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe. You will find many more to come your way. Thank you so much. Bye for now.